evening, and wherever the sun may find you. My name is Walt, and this is Coffee and Concepts on Keystroke Medium. We're a little late today because we're broadcasting across time zones. We have Mr. James S. Aaron broadcasting from the past. How are you, sir?
Good. How you doing?
Trying to stay out of trouble. That is an epic bookshelf, and now I have bookshelf envy. My God, that's fantastic.
Unfortunately, it's only part of the library too. Like, I built an office this year, and so I've been moving stuff out here. And it's I'm actually working through getting rid of books. Like, that's my task for the next year is, read a book, decide if I like it or not, and then get rid of it.
Okay, so. Well, I'll give you my address after the show. We accept any and all donations. Thank you for coming on today. We really appreciate it. We got you in the middle of two books coming out: Galactic Law for Executioner with J.N. Chaney, and then the Sentience Wars, Fire Upon Worlds with M.D. Cooper. So aside from being from the past, did you also use this time machine to jump through so that you can actually sleep at some point?
Right. I feel like time is cut in half for me. Like, I sit down to work and I've got 30 minutes instead of an hour. It's just, I don't know what it is about right now, but I've got a 2-year-old as well. And so she eats time.
Like my goodness.
Monster. Yeah.
So 2-year-old and toddler has your 2-year-old, what has they just has she discovered running yet? I can talk.
Oh yeah. So part of the whole thing with working from home, like I built this office thinking like, okay, I'll be able to get out of the house and have a place away. Like, oh no, she comes out, knocks on the door, daddy, and just super cute. I feel bad. So if I turn the music up so I can't hear her, I'm like, man, I'm scarring her for life. Her father's not listening to her.
Oh, that's fantastic and horrible at the same time. It's okay. Therapy is very affordable now.
Exactly. Cheaper.
So what kind of coffee are you drinking?
Right now I'm drinking an Ethiopian, which I wish I knew more about where it was coming from, but it's good. I've with your influence, I've started moving to more black, drinking my coffee black, and I'm trying to find the fruity notes that it apparently are in there somewhere. I'm looking for it. I think I drink it too fast, maybe.
Right on. Yeah. The way you brew it too can sometimes have an effect on how the taste is affected. If you're finding you're having trouble finding those notes, because usually Ethiopian has that really heavy blueberry taste, you can go for a stronger brew, less water, a little more grind, or use like a French press. French press usually does the trick. And usually most people, when they first start out, they're like, oh, okay, let's see, I need 4 teaspoons of sugar and this much water. You just start dumping stuff in there, and pretty soon you are tasting the number purple. Right. Joaquim Oliveira, my brother from another mother, one state over, is saying, hola. Hey, how are you, sir? What kind of coffees are you looking to try next? Do you have one in your sights that you're thinking about?
I've been branching out. So I do grind my own, but that's about. I've been wanting to branch out more. So we had been just consistently, when I go to the grocery store, I get what I want. I don't shop. I boom, boom, boom. And we had been buying Donut Shop, which I think was a ripoff of Dunkin' Donuts blend.
Right on.
Which I typically, I like. We don't have a lot of Dunkin' Donuts on the West Coast, but when I travel somewhere, I like Dunkin'. I like their coffee. But I was like, if I'm going to taste this, I should, give it a shot. So I've been moving through my local grocery store, like, Ethiopian, Guatemalan, Peru. And then I was thinking about it, like, that's like saying United States, Canada coffee. So I need to get more educated on this. And I've got some local roasters I want to check out as well. So, yeah, it's the beginning of a journey.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, local roasters usually are best because they'll usually send people out to investigate. I learned that the hard way buying a $6 Kona blend versus for a pound. versus actually paying the $25 to $50 it takes to get all the good coffee over here. And the difference was like night and day because I mean the better blend, it wasn't cut with anything, and it had the flavor profiles that come from getting the beans from that volcanic soil, and it was really worth the money because you were just like, wow, this is amazing.
And you
So
can
yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want to get into our concept, which is we spoke a little bit last week about this, and it is something that plagues writers throughout history, and that would be tweaking your manuscript. Now you're in the middle of two right now.
Mhm.
And like you said, you're experiencing the half an hour versus the hour because the time machine might have spilled some bad coffee in there. What, what's your process like when you start tweaking a manuscript?
Yeah. So one of the things about the work I'm doing right now is it's very specific. Like it's aimed at a specific audience, both with the Renegade Star audience and then the Aeon 14 audience. So it's kind of like writing a tie-in novel, for Star Wars or things like that. So we have kind of a really specific editorial process. I start with a detailed outline that a couple different editors um, beat me up about. And so that
We
helps
don't see
me.
any bruises. You look fantastic.
Yeah, it actually, it's funny. Like I always have to, like, if I get some feedback, and I'm pissed off, I'm sorry, I'm angry about it. I have to like, okay, stop, put it back, step back, come back at this an hour later. And I would say in pretty much all instances, it's helped me. If there was an idea I had that I was really wed to, like, okay, I get some feedback on that. I can see why that's not going to work for this person. And I have a lot of trust in these editors that they know the audience really well. And so that's what I'm there to do, is please that audience. So by putting the work in on the outline, it really helps the downstream work as far as the tweaking goes. So I'm not fixing a lot of major plot things. What I'm looking for is, now I do look for places, and I do this while I'm writing. If I deviate from the plot, I really need to know why, and I'll come back to the editor and we'll talk about it. And like, hey, this thing happened. You think this will work or not work? And that's really helpful. So I think if you don't have that kind of thing to help you out, like that's where a beta team can really help you. Or if you've got a trusted group of other authors that you're working with, they might not have read your outline, but they might at least be able to give you feedback on a character motivation or something. But so that really helps me when I get to the tweaking part. So it really is tweaking. Like I'm not pulling the legs off the table and putting new legs on. I'm sanding and moving down by grit levels and whatnot. So I've got some different things that I do just as kind of nuts and bolts things. Like I've gone back and forth on using Pro Writing Aid. I'm fortunate to have editors that go through the book, and so Pro Writing Aid is something I wouldn't do until the very end, like when the book comes back to me and I'm making final things. But like before it even goes to the editor, and I feel like it's in a pretty good place. It's like 90%. I've got some stuff I search for just to help tighten stuff up. So vague words, and I've got a list of things. Like I'll just Control F search is my best friend here, where I'm going to search for vague words that I know I tend to use. So like the word various, the word several. Like when I know that if I get into a scene and it's not locked in my mind, and I put in these generic words, that's what I'm going to search for. And so I have a list of these generic words that I just do cut and paste, and maybe I pull it up and okay, that's working, that's all right, or nope, need to drill into that, because they tend to point me towards places where I was not being specific in either my description or what the character is doing, the character's placement in the scene, things like that. Filtering words, other stuff I'll search for. So I saw, I heard, he saw, she saw, like that, and if folks aren't familiar with what filtering is, that's like psychic distance is this concept where how close is your character to the action? Are you inside the character's mind? Are you feeling what they feel? Or are you like third person omniscient, where you're like floating above the action, watching, your little isometric RPG play out as the characters are fighting through a battle or something, right? So I'll look for those things, because those kind of words pull the reader away from the action, and oftentimes you can just cut that I saw or I heard, and give the sound description, give the visual, so I look for that stuff. Like, I don't write a lot of first person, and one thing about Renegade Star is it's all first person, and so that was a big transition for me. And I had to start looking for stuff, especially in dialogue I was doing, that tended to be repetitive. So I said, like, that's one I look for, and in most places I'll just cut it, because it's kind of implied that if there's no dialogue that's tied to an action or a character, it's typically the first person POV that's saying that. So I'll look for that. I also look for dialogue construction that is not making sense. Like, if you read a flow of dialogue, like, I would love to be like Elmore Leonard and be able to write dialogue with no dialogue tags, and you can tell exactly who's speaking, but I'm not there yet. And every time I think I'm good at that, an editor is like, what is this? Who's talking? So so I'll go through and look at that, and that's kind of gets into the other thing that I'll look for is exposition. Am I getting that like action description, those like sensory words? Am I intermixing that with the dialogue, with the action? Because I don't want big chunks of that, in a chapter, because that slows the reader down, and you can use that stuff to space out, action and dialogue and things like that. So I'll look for that, and just searching for dialogue usually leads me to that stuff in the text. So I'll do that. I've got to search, just like a search for, I search for different words and just kind of check it off the list as I go down. Right. Other things that I look for. So I'm writing, I'm writing action science fiction, right? So I want the reader to move through it. I don't want to slow the reader down. So I try not to ever end a chapter on a feeling of resolution. But I also don't want to have a cliffhanger, right? So I want the chapter to end with something happening to drive, like a question or an action, to drive the reader into the next chapter. And then when the next chapter begins, I don't want to slow the reader down with a bunch of, they stood in the doorway and looked across the room, and this is all the stuff they saw, and blah, 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 blah. Like, nope. I want to open up either, when I first started, a lot of people told me, like, don't ever open a book or a story with dialogue. Don't open a chapter with dialogue. But I think what I've discovered is that dialogue is, and once you're in the book and people know who's speaking, dialogue is one of the strongest things to pull people into a scene, to like propel that reader forward. If only just to answer the question of who's speaking. So
look at the Martian, the first line in the Martian.
Yep.
That's him kind of like talking to himself.
Yeah, and that's a great example of you're in his head the whole time.
Joaquin Oliveira threw out a question. Plotting. How important is it to have the ending sorted out and outlined? Does it help as much as some people say?
For me, it's huge, because if I don't know where the book's going, I can't. Like, for me, that's what leads to writer's block. If I don't know what's going to happen, that's where I just sit and stare at the page, even within a scene. So even within, like, knowing ultimately where the book's going to go, how the characters are going to end, what's the final emotion I want the book to end on, what's the, and then in a scene, like, how are the characters going into the scene? How do I want them to end up when they leave the scene? Because that's where every chapter should be some kind of transition, right? Either in action, like, we fought a guy, we kicked their ass, or we didn't kick their ass, they got away. Now we need to figure out how to go find them and do it again. Like, all those things are transitions. And if I don't know where the characters or where the story's going, I just kind of like flail around and I don't have a lot of time to do that. So
now, how do you outline? Do you outline as you go, or do you like have it structured and very strict right when you're sitting down to type?
I tend to, like, that's one thing working with, so Variant Publications is, I think they've been on a couple of Keystroke shows, like The Writer's Journey. Variant uses the Larry Brooks model of story structure, which is a 4-act story structure. And they write out very detailed, like, tend to be about 4,000 word outlines, which is more than I would usually do. Like, I actually, one thing I picked up from the Army is I do everything in Excel. In fact, Scott was talking about this in one of these, like with his police stuff, and Excel for me, like, I'll just do a list of, like, here's everything that needs to happen, and then kind of break it down from there. And it's easy to add, rows or whatever. So for me personally, I start with that. And, like, this is everything that's going to happen in the book. These are the parts of the book. And then I start digging into that some more with okay, where's plot point 1? Where's plot point 2? And this is a Larry Brooks model. If you, I think Story Engineering is the title of his book. If you look for Larry Brooks, in fact, he was on Lauren's show, which was awesome. But for me, that helps me figure out where these things need to happen. And then the way Variant does things is I would take that and I just write out like a summary of each of those things. So each of those, like what would be one line in the Excel doc, gets a good 500 words in the outline. And that's how you end up with, a really detailed outline. And then an editor goes through that. It's like, why? This makes no sense. Why'd this happen? Why are you doing that? and I've gotten
Pesky editors.
I've gotten a much bigger, thicker skin about it. But it's really helpful because if I find, like, if I get to that place where like I'm writing, I'm in a place in the book, in the middle of the book or something, where I'm like, I don't know, like I just am not feeling the energy with this. I go back to the outline and I realize, oh, we kind of talked about this, or oh, here's where I'm going, and I'm not good at jumping around within a book. Like people have talked about, like Dean Wesley Smith talks about, well, if I don't like this part, I'll just go move forward and write this part and come back. And I'm not good at that. I like to be able to write in a linear fashion, so that outlining helps me do that. So
right on.
Yeah.
Another question from Joaquin, and how to improve the sense of progression when writing an action sci-fi novel. Any tips?
A sense of progression. So do you mean like how we keep the reader moving through the story, or?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah. It's kind of dumb, but I really think of what I'm doing as like an RPG, like writing it, like playing Borderlands. If anybody's played Borderlands, which is I think one of the most underrated space operas that's out there right now.
And the best example of digital gun porn.
I love it, man. Yeah. But think about how you start out. You're underpowered. Like you're not completely underpowered, but you've got enough power to give the player satisfaction. You've got a story and a story question that's pulling the reader forward, and then you slowly give the character more power as they progress in the story. And you also give them options. So like when I choose that gun, when I look at my loadout, I get to choose, and even to start with in Borderlands, I can choose what kind of character class I want to play. And so as a writer, you're kind of forcing that, but you give the character choices as they progress. And for me, it's a power progression, and this is something I've learned a lot. Like Galactic Law is a good example of, so the first book in that series actually started as a project that Scott and Josh were working on. It's supposed to be, law enforcement in a future scenario. And so I worked for a police department for 9 years. And while I was not a police officer, I did get to go through some cool training and stuff. And I was certified as a police trainer. And so I wanted to write a book from that perspective of like a brand new sheriff's deputy starting out. And I learned a pretty valuable lesson with that, where some of the readers did not like having an underpowered main character that was like learning things as they went. They wanted somebody that knew and was competent, but had to struggle against the plot, right? And so that was kind of a lesson for me. And that's something not that that's bad. I think certain other books that works better in. This audience really wanted that power fantasy, So that's kind of, when I think about, okay, how's a reader moving through the story? Like that starting point is something I've been thinking about a lot. I'm mapping out a new series now, and it's basically like a grimdark space opera with like Conan in space, right? And so I was thinking of Conan's origin story from the movies, not necessarily, and this is actually a difference between the movies and Robert Howard. Robert Howard started writing Conan. Conan was in his 40s, already a general, controlling a city. The movie starts with these flashbacks to Conan when he's a slave boy, working on the slave wheel, fighting his way free. And I think the movie that worked, but the readers want that character that they can really get behind, right? They want a character who's got power and can, control their situation and make choices and fight their way out of something, not get out just because the universe happened to smile on them that day, right? Or the gods made things easy for them. So that's something I've been thinking about a lot. Like, where do we start with the characters so they've got some agency that keeps the reader satisfied?
Right
I feel like I drifted there, but
no, not at all.
If that helps.
Yeah, I like characters getting beat up and having to fight back from something. I mean, all throughout literature. I mean, if the character's not getting beat up and they're just kind of drifting through and everything's super easy, there's nothing to do. That's not really a story. That's just a list.
And it's a challenge, I think, to find like what I'm working on now is definitely it's entertainment. That's how do you find that balance between entertaining the reader, and readers are coming to this kind of story, because they had a crappy day and they want to a story that kind of makes them feel good. And so that, that's a big thing I've learned in the last couple of years is kind of changing my approach to things like that. Like, because yeah, you're right. I want that satisfying story. I want to create an interesting character to me and beat the crap out of them, so they like have a good arc and turn out different than they were. But it's hard. It's really hard to do that. Like, Scott's Reaper series, I think, is a great example of that, has some does kick ass, but there's a progression there, and they've got some things they got to overcome. They've got a past they've got to reconcile with. And he did a really great job of creating a character that I think satisfies those different points.
Well, not only that too, but the character has the worst luck ever.
Right.
He starts in a prison cell.
Yeah.
So already things have gone from bad to suck.
He's already got to fight his way out. And he fights his way out. It's not like a lot of game. Like, I think, which Skyrim game was it where they just show up and let you out of the prison cell? Like, that's not how.
Yeah, that's
how Reaper works out.
Skyrim. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, having something like that is a lot of fun, especially when you got as quippy as Kane, I believe his name is. He's just, he's like, what are you going to do to me? I'm in a cell already. And he's very quippy, and he's very and you have that other point of view character that rides along with him that is constantly nagging him, but like in a way that is not like beep, 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 beep. It's just like you might want to blah 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 blah, or we could die again.
Sarcasm detected. Yeah.
So yeah, good, definite good series. When you are going through things and kind of like moving stories around, do you get to a point in the story where you're just like, oh my God, this is a great idea. Crap, I got to change these 15 other things, and then have to go look through a manuscript for those tags that let you know where those happen? Or do you kind of keep track of that as you go?
I really try to do that in the outlining phase, but like that just happened to me recently where I was like, off writing, like, this is awesome. And then I went back and looked at my outline and was like, oh crap, I just like have, 4 things I needed to include to make the other stuff work. And so for me, I actually have found that instead of trying to fix something that I know I did wrong, I just cut it and rewrite. Because I can write fast enough that as long as I know, that's the thing with me, like as long as I know what I'm going to write, I'm a fast writer. It's when I don't know where I'm going to go that I only get like 1,000 words a day. I mean, I can do a 10,000 word day if I know I'm going to write.
Oh, wow.
That's something over time I've learned. So I really spend a lot of time in that outlining to make sure I know where I'm going to go.
Is that a thing from the Army? Like, were you enlisted where somebody was over your shoulder in the beginning?
I had the unfortunate experience of being both enlisted and an officer. So,
oh, you poor man.
Yeah, it's actually been more from, I think, really fighting against, and that's one big difference between working with, like, say, Jeff Chaney and his team and Mal Cooper. Like, Mal just has Aeon 14 in her head. Like, you want to talk about an outline, like, she's not interested in outlining. She doesn't outline. So me, I outline. I'll try and ask questions and get things. And the Aeon 14 books are actually kind of more challenging to write for me. I can be more, I don't want to say creative. I can do different things in those books than I can with the Renegade books, but it's just a very different process. And I've found that I can write the Renegade books faster. I've learned, in this year of working with Variant, I can write those books a lot faster, and they're tighter. They're different, so it's hard to compare them exactly, but I've just gotten really good feedback on that process. I can knock those books out a lot faster than the Aeon 14 books that take a long time.
I'll just tell you right now that I'm already drooling over Space Conan. So yeah, you just send everything this way. We'll take care of it for you. It's all good.
I'm stoked about this. It's going to be the first series under my own name. So
nice.
Yeah.
Where'd it go? I lost it. It happens. We try not to judge. There we go. So we got a Fire Upon Worlds that is working right now. And when does that drop?
That one's going to be, they're both actually the week of July 16th. One's coming out on Sunday and one's coming out on Thursday.
Right on. And they can go to all the fine e-tailers like Amazon and pick that up.
Yep. Yep.
Excellent. Excellent. So we got that. And then we were showing it a little while ago. I lost it. Damn buttons. And then we had the Galactic Executioner, book 4 in the Galactic Law series. And that drops the same week. Once again, all the fine e-tailers grab it and snatch it.
Yep. And it's the first 2 books in that series are coming out in Audible end of this month. So I'm stoked about that as well.
Excellent. And if people want to stalk you on the internet, where can they find you?
JamesAaron.net, or just search Facebook for James Aaron. I'm trying to be less on Facebook, but if you send me a message, I'll definitely answer back. So
speaking on thriving on chaos,
right.
We really appreciate you coming out today. Thank you so much. This is really, really cool. If I can threaten you with a bag of coffee, can we get you to sit down and talk to us again?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is fantastic. We are Keystroke Medium, and we also have other shows that you should definitely check out live with Josh, Scott, and Chuck. I don't know why saying their names in succession like that gives me such problems, but I have anxiety about that. So they're on Monday mornings, and then of course Coffee and Concepts on Tuesdays when we, depending on time zones, and then 9 p.m. Eastern we have Lauren and Kayleen on the Writer's Journey. All the tips and tricks and tactics for getting into or maybe getting out of writing, and you have Josh Gayu, who does long form storytelling on YouTube, and interviews and discussions. Very, very cool show. It's I know I use it when I'm walking the dog. I can get it in chunks and then always go back to it. So definitely cool shows. Check them out. Right now we have a push going to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So make sure you hit like and subscribe. Go back on Facebook. Tell Josh, Scott, and Chuck, Lauren, and Kayleen how much you love them. Let's get them to 1,000 viewers so they can do even more for our community, for reading, writing, and a little bit more here on Keystroke Medium. Thanks again, James. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers. And now there's an awkward segue while we